You are now tuned in to the Bloomble Book Club. We do this book club every Sunday and Wednesday. We get together for an hour and listen to a book that we believe can empower who we are as individuals and help catapult us into the next level to accomplish all of our dreams, goals, and aspirations. This is a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Everybody listen up, because this is a book that's going to change our lives. So let me get this started.
I also knew she was more evolved than I was. When I felt that electricity, it carried a message to look toward the kitchen window, and I instantly remembered why I was there. I turned and looked into the kitchen where my present self, a few hours before I went to the couch to relax, was busy washing dishes. From the backyard, I smiled. I was so in love with him. I saw his sincerity. I saw his struggles. I saw his passion. I saw his love. I saw his mind busy, as always, constantly attempting to dovetail concepts into meaning. And among other things, I saw some of his future. Like a great parent, I was proud of him, and I had nothing but admiration for who he was in that moment. As I was feeling that intense energy increase inside of me while I observed him, I witnessed him suddenly stop washing the dishes and look out the window, staring out and panning the backyard. While I was still my future self, I was able to remember the moment as my present self. And I remembered that I had indeed stopped and looked outside in that instant because I felt a spontaneous feeling of love in my chest. And I sensed that I was being watched, or that someone was outside. I further recalled that while I was washing a glass, I actually leaned forward to minimize the glaze in the window from the kitchen light above me, and peered into the darkness for a few minutes before returning to the remaining items in the sink. My future self was doing to my present self what the beautiful, luminous lady had done to me moments before. Now I understood why she was there. And like looking at the child in the previous scene, once again, the love that my future self was feeling for my present self somehow connected me to my future self. My future me was there to call my present self to that future, and I knew that it was love that made that bond possible. The evolved version of me had such a sense of knowing. The paradox is that it is all me living at the same time. In fact, there is an infinite number of me's, not just the one in the past, the one in the present, and the one in the future. There are so many more possible me's in the realm of infinity. And there is not just one infinity, but multiple infinities. And all of this is happening in the eternal now. When I came back to physical reality as we know it on the couch, which paled in comparison to the other dimensional world I was just in, my first thought was, wow, my view of reality is so limited. The rich inner experience provided such a sense of clarity and the understanding that my beliefs, that is what I thought I knew about life, God, myself, time, space, and what is even possible to experience in this infinite realm, was so very limited, and I hadn't even realized it until that moment. I knew I was like an infant with little comprehension of the magnitude of how big this thing we call reality is. I understood without fear or anxiety what the phrase, the unknown, meant for the first time in my life. And I knew I would never be the same person again. I'm sure you can imagine that when something like this happens, trying to explain it to your family or friends suggests some chemical imbalance in the brain. I was hesitant to talk about the event to anyone because I didn't even have the words to describe the experience, and I didn't want to jinx it from happening again. For months, I was very preoccupied with reviewing the entire process that I thought may have created the experience. I was also mystified about the concept of time, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Aside from the paradigm shift about the eternal moment in time, I discovered something more. I realized after the transcendental event that night, when I came back to the world of 3 dimensions, that the whole experience had transpired in about 10 minutes. I had just lived 2 extensive events, and it should have taken much more time for the entire experience to unfold. This time dilation further piqued my interest in committing more of my energy to investigating what had happened to me. Once I understood more, I hoped I might be able to reproduce the experience. For days after that important night, the center of my chest was electric in the same way I had felt when the beautiful, tiny woman activated something within me. I kept thinking, how can this feeling still be lingering inside of me unless something real happened? When I put my attention on the center of my chest, I noticed the feeling amplify. Understandably, I wasn't very interested in any social interaction during this period because the people and conditions in the outer world distracted from that feeling in my inner world, and the special feeling diminished. In time, it finally faded completely, but I never stopped thinking about the idea that there is always more love to experience, and that the energy I had embraced in that realm still lived within me. I wanted to activate it again, but I didn't know how. For a long time, even though I tried to reproduce the experience, nothing happened. I now realize that the expectation of the same outcome, combined with the frustration of trying to force it to happen, is the worst combination for creating another mystical experience, or anything for that matter. I became lost in my own personal analysis, trying to figure out how it occurred and how I could make it happen again. I decided to add a few new approaches. Instead of trying to recreate the experience in the evening, I decided to wake up early in the morning and meditate. Since melatonin levels are the highest between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., the mystical chemical metabolites of melatonin are the very substrates responsible for creating a lucid event. I decided I would practice my inner work at 4 every morning. Before I share what happened next, I want to ask you to keep in mind that this was an unusually difficult time in my life. I was deciding whether it was worth it for me to continue to teach. I'd experienced a fair amount of chaos in my life after appearing in the 2004 documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know? I was considering stepping away from the public world and disappearing into a simpler life. It seemed so much easier just to walk away. Living a past incarnation in the present moment. One morning, about an hour and a half after I started my meditation in a seated position, I finally reclined. I put some pillows under my knees so I wouldn't fall asleep too quickly, allowing me to linger between wakefulness and sleep. As I lay down, I simply put my attention in the place the pineal gland occupies in my head. But this time, instead of trying to make something happen, I just let go and said to myself, whatever. Apparently, that was the magic word. I know what that means now. I surrendered, got out of the way, let go of any specific outcome, and simply opened up to possibility. The next thing I knew, I was experiencing myself as a stout man in a very hot region of the world that seemed to be what we now call Greece or Turkey. The terrain was rocky, the ground was parched, and stone buildings like those in Greco-Roman times were interspersed with many small tents made of brightly colored fabrics. I was wearing a one-piece skirted burlap garment that fell from my shoulders to my mid-thighs, and I had a thick rope tied around my waist like a belt. I wore sandals roped up to my calves. I had thick curly hair and my body felt strong. My shoulders were broad and my arms and legs were muscular. I was a philosopher and a long-time student of some charismatic movement. I was simultaneously the self in that experience and my present self observing me in that particular time and space. Again, I was way more conscious than normal. I was super conscious. All my senses were heightened and I was very aware of everything. I could smell the familiar musk of my body and could taste the salt of my perspiration dripping from my face. I loved the taste. I felt grounded in the physicality and strength of my body. I was aware of deep pain in my right shoulder, but it did not consume my attention. I saw the brightness of the blue sky and the richness of the green trees and mountains, as if I were living in Technicolor. I heard seagulls in the distance, and I knew I was near a large body of water. I was on a pilgrimage and mission of sorts. I was traveling about the country teaching the philosophy that I had studied and lived by my whole life. I was under the tutelage of a grand master whom I loved very deeply because of the care, patience, and wisdom he had given me for so many years. It was my time now to be initiated and to deliver a message to change the minds and hearts of the culture. I knew that the message I was disseminating was counter to the current beliefs of that time, and that the government and religious orders of the day would challenge me. The main message of the philosophy I studied would free people from living in any type of obligation to something or someone outside of them. It would require individuals to demonstrate a code of principles that would empower them to have more enriched and meaningful lives. I was passionate about this idealism, and I worked daily to live in alignment with the doctrines. Of course, the message would omit the need for religion and for any dependence on governments, and it would free people from personal pain and suffering. As the scene came to life, I had just finished addressing a crowd in a relatively populated village. The gathering was just breaking up when suddenly, several men quickly moved through the masses to arrest me. Before I could even try to escape, I was seized. I knew that they had planned their strategy well. If they had begun to move about while I had been talking to the crowd, I would have spotted them. They timed it perfectly. I surrendered without resistance, and they took me to a prison cell where I was left alone. Locked in a small stone cube with narrow slits for windows, I sat there knowing my destiny. Nothing I could do would prepare me for what was about to happen. Within 2 days, I was taken to the center of the city where hundreds of people gathered. Many of them, the same people who had listened to me speak just a few days earlier. But now, they eagerly anticipated the chance to watch my trial and impending torture. I was stripped to a small cloth undergarment and then strapped to a large horizontal stone slab with large grooves notched into the corners through which ropes slid. The ropes had metal cuffs on the ends that were fastened to my wrists and ankles. Then it began. A man standing to my left started to crank a lever that moved the slab slowly from a horizontal position forward to a more vertical position. As the stone block moved upward, the ropes pulled my limbs tighter in all 4 directions. When I made it to about 45 degrees, the real pain began. Someone who seemed to be a magistrate yelled out, asking me if I would continue teaching my philosophy. I did not look up or answer. He then ordered the man to crank the lever further. At a certain point, I started to hear audible noises and pops, evidence of my spine dislocating in certain areas. As the observer of this scene, I watched the look on my face as the pain increased. It was like looking into a mirror and seeing myself. I became acutely aware that it was me on that slab. The metal cuffs around my wrists and ankles now tore into my skin, and the sharp metal burned. I was bleeding. One of my shoulders dislocated, and I heaved and grunted in pain. My body was convulsing and shaking as I tried to resist the tearing of my limbs by flexing and holding my muscles tight in resistance. Letting go would have been unbearable. Suddenly, the magistrate hollered out again, asking me if I would continue to teach. I had a thought. I will agree to stop teaching, and then when they let me down from this public display of torture, I will simply start again. I reasoned that this was the right answer. It would appease the magistrate and stop the pain and my death, while enabling me to continue my mission. I slowly shook my head from side to side in silence. Then the magistrate pressed me to verbally say no, but I would not speak. He then motioned quickly to the tormentor on my left to push the crank even harder. I looked down at the man as he turned the gears with a clear intention to hurt me. I saw his face, and as we looked into each other's eyes, I, as the observer, instantly recognized this person as someone in my present life as Joe Dispenza. The same person, but in a different body. Something clicked within me as I witnessed this scene. I recognized that this tormentor is still tormenting others, including me, in my current incarnation, and I understand that person's role in my life. It was an odd, familiar feeling or knowing, and it made perfect sense. As the slab accelerated upward, my lower back snapped and my body started to lose control. That was the moment that broke me. I wept from the blinding pain and also felt such a deep sadness consume my whole being. When the weight of the heavy stone was released, it fell quickly back to the horizontal position. I lay there quivering uncontrollably in silence. I was then dragged back to the small prison cell where I lay curled up in the corner. For 3 days, I couldn't stop the flashbacks of my torture. I was so humiliated that I never could speak in public again. The very thought of returning to my mission created such a visceral response in my body that I stopped even thinking about it. One night they released me, and without being noticed, head down in utter shame, I disappeared. I was unable to look anyone in the eye ever again. I felt like I had failed in my mission. I spent the rest of my life in a cave by the sea, trapping fish and living in silence as a hermit. As I witnessed this poor man's plight and his choice to hide from the world, I understood that this was a message for me. I knew that in my present life I could not disappear or hide from the world again, and that my soul wanted me to see that I had to continue my work. I had to make the effort to stand up for a message and never again retract from adversity. I also recognized that I hadn't failed at all. I had done my best. I knew that the young philosopher still lived in the eternal present moment as a myriad of possible me's, and that I could change my future and his by never again being afraid to live for the truth instead of dying for it. Each of us has myriad possible incarnations that exist in the eternal present moment, all waiting to be discovered. When the mystery of the self is unveiled, we can wake up to the understanding that we are not linear beings living a linear life, but instead dimensional beings living dimensional lives. The beauty behind the infinite probabilities that await us is that the only way we can change those futures is to change ourselves in the present infinite moment.
Damn, that's huge.
Chapter 2, The Present Moment. If you want to experience the supernatural in your own life, by healing your body, creating new opportunities you could never have imagined before, and having transcendent mystical experiences, you first need to master the concept of the present moment, the eternal now. There's a lot of talk about being present or being in the now these days. While most people understand the basics of what that means, not to think about the future or live in the past, I want to offer you a completely different understanding of the concept. It's going to require that you get beyond the physical world, including your body, your identity, and your environment, and even beyond time itself. This is where you turn possibility into reality. After all, if you don't get beyond who you think you are and the way you've been conditioned to believe the world works, it's not possible to create a new life or a new destiny. So in a very real sense, you have to get out of your own way, transcend the memory of yourself as an identity, and allow something greater than you, something mystical, to take over. In this chapter, I'm going to explain how that works. First, let's take a look at how the brain functions. When any neurological tissue in the brain or the body is activated, it creates mind. Consequently, from a neuroscientific understanding, mind is the brain in action. For instance, you have a specific mind to drive your car. You have another mind to take a shower. You have a different mind when you sing a song or listen to music. You use a specific level of mind to execute each of those complex functions because you've probably done each of these tasks thousands of times. So your brain turns on in a very specific way whenever you do any of them. When your brain is in action as you drive your car, for example, you are in fact turning on a specific sequence, pattern, and combination of neurological networks. Those neural networks, or neural nets, are simply clusters of neurons that work together as a community, just like an automatic software program or a macro, because you've done that particular action so many times. In other words, the neurons that fire together to accomplish the task become more wired together. As you consciously choose to perform the task of driving your vehicle, we could say that you are automatically selecting and instructing those neurons in your brain to turn on to create a level of mind. For the most part, your brain is a product of the past. It has been shaped and molded to become a living record of everything you have learned and experienced up to this point in your life. Learning from a neuroscientific standpoint is when neurons in your brain assemble to form thousands of synaptic connections, and those connections then assemble into complex, three-dimensional neurological networks.
That's interesting.
Think of learning as your brain getting an upgrade. When you pay attention to knowledge or information and it makes sense to you, this interaction with the environment leaves biological impressions in your brain. When you experience something new, your senses write the story neurologically in your brain, and even more neurons come together to make even more enriched connections, upgrading your brain even further. Experiences not only enhance the brain's circuitry, but they also create emotions. Think of emotions as the chemical residue from past experiences, or chemical feedback. The stronger the emotional quotient from an event in your life, the more the experience leaves a lasting impression in your brain. That's how long-term memories are formed. So if learning means making new connections in your brain, memories are when you maintain those connections. The more you repeat a thought, choice, behavior, experience, or emotion, the more those neurons fire and wire together, and the more they will sustain a long-term relationship. In Anna's story in the previous chapter, you learned most of your experiences come from your interaction with your external environment. Since your senses plug you into the external environment and neurologically record the narrative in your brain, when you experience a highly charged emotional event, bad or good, that moment becomes embossed neurologically in your brain as a memory. Therefore, when an experience changes how you normally feel chemically and heightens your attention to what caused it, you will associate a specific person or thing with where your body is at a particular time and place. That's how you create memories, by interacting with the outer world. It's safe to say that the only place the past actually exists is in your brain and in your body. How your past becomes your future. Let's take a closer look at what happens biochemically inside your body when you think a thought or feel an emotion. When you think a thought or have a memory, a biochemical reaction begins in your brain, causing the brain to release certain chemical signals. That's how immaterial thoughts literally become matter. They become chemical messengers. These chemical signals make your body feel exactly the way you were just thinking. If you notice you are feeling a particular way, then you generate more thoughts equal to how you're feeling, and then you release more chemicals from your brain to make you feel the way you've been thinking. For example, if you have a fearful thought, you start to feel fear. The moment you feel fear, that emotion influences you to think more fearful thoughts. And those thoughts trigger the release of even more chemicals in the brain and body to make you continue to feel more fear. The next thing you know, you get caught in a loop where your thinking creates feeling and your feeling creates thinking. If thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain and feelings are the vocabulary of the body, and the cycle of how you think and feel becomes your state of being, then your entire state of being is in the past. When you fire and wire the same circuits in your brain over and over again because you keep thinking the same thoughts, you are hardwiring your brain into the same patterns. As a result, your brain becomes an artifact of your past thinking, and in time it becomes easier to automatically think in the same ways. At the same time, as you repeatedly feel the same emotions over and over again, since, as I just said, emotions are the vocabulary of the body and the chemical residue of past experiences, you are conditioning your body into the past. So now let's look at what that means for you on a day-to-day basis. Given what you just learned about feelings and emotions being the chemical end products of past events, the moment you wake up in the morning and search for the familiar feeling called you are starting your day in the past. So when you start to think about your problems, those problems, which are connected to the memories of past experiences of different people or things at certain times and places, create familiar feelings such as unhappiness, futility, sadness, pain, grief, anxiety, worry, frustration, unworthiness, or guilt. If those emotions are driving your thoughts and you cannot think greater than how you feel, then you are also thinking in the past. And if those familiar emotions influence the choices you are going to make that day, the behaviors you are going to exhibit, or the experiences you are going to create for yourself, then you're going to appear predictable, and your life is going to stay the same. Now, let's say after you wake up, you turn off your alarm, and as you lie there in bed, you check your Facebook, your Instagram, your WhatsApp, your Twitter, your texts, your emails, and then the news. Now you are really remembering who you are as you reaffirm your personality and connect to your past, present, personal reality.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the bathroom, you use the toilet, brush your teeth, take a shower, get dressed, and then head for the kitchen. You drink some coffee and eat breakfast. Maybe you watch the news or check your email again. It's the same routine you follow every day. Then you drive to work using the same old route, and when you get there, you interact with the same co-workers you saw the day before. You spend your day performing pretty much the same duties you performed yesterday. You might even react to the same challenges at work with the same emotions. Then after work, you drive home. Maybe you stop at the same grocery store and buy the food you like and always eat. You cook the same food for dinner and watch the same television show at the same time while sitting in the same place in your living room. Then you get ready for bed in the same way you always do. You brush your teeth with your right hand starting from the upper right side of your mouth. You crawl into the same side of the bed. Maybe you read a little and then you go to sleep. If you keep doing these same routines over and over again, they will become a habit. A habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that you acquire through frequent repetition.
Wow.
Basically, it means your body is now on autopilot, running a series of programs, and over time, your body becomes the mind. You've done this routine so many times that your body automatically knows how to do certain things better than your brain or conscious mind. You just switch on the autopilot and go unconscious, which means you'll wake up the next morning and essentially do the same things all over again. In a very real sense, your body is dragging you into the same predictable future based on what you have been repeatedly doing in the same familiar past. You will think the same thoughts and then make the same choices that lead to the same behaviors, that create the same experiences, that produce the same emotions. Over time, you've created a set of hardwired neurological networks in the brain, and you have emotionally conditioned your body to live in the past. And that past becomes your future.
Damn.
If you were looking at a timeline of your day, starting with waking up in the morning and continuing until you go to bed that night, You could pick up that timeline of yesterday or today, your past, and place it in the space reserved for tomorrow, the future, because essentially the same actions you took today are the ones you were going to take tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Let's face it, if you keep the same routine as yesterday, it makes sense that your tomorrow is going to be a lot like your yesterday. Your future is just a rerun of your past. That's because your yesterday is creating your tomorrow. Take a look at figure 2.1. Each of those vertical lines represent the same thought that leads to the same choice that initiates an automatic behavior that creates a known experience that produces a familiar feeling or an emotion. If you keep reproducing the same sequence, in time, all those individual steps merge into one automatic program. This is how you lose your free will to a program. The arrow represents an unknown experience dropping in somewhere between your driving to work in traffic, knowing you are going to be late again, and you trying to stop by the dry cleaners on your way. We could say that your mind and body are in the known, the same predictable future based on what you did in the same familiar past. And in that known certain future, there's no room for the unknown. In fact, if something new happened, if something unknown were to unfold in your life at that moment to change the same predictable timeline of your day, you'd probably be annoyed at the disruption of your routine.
Damn, this is huge.
You'd likely consider it troublesome, problematic, and downright inconvenient. You might say, "Can you come back tomorrow? This is not the right time."
This is it, right here.
The fact is, there's no room for the unknown in a predictable life. But being predictable is not how the unknown works. The unknown is unfamiliar, uncertain, but it's also exciting because it occurs in ways you cannot expect or anticipate. So let me ask you, how much room in your routine, predictable life do you have for the unknown?
Damn.
By staying in the known, following the same sequence each day of thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, demonstrating the same programmed habits, recreating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns to reaffirm the same familiar feeling called you are repeating the same level of mind over and over again. In time, your brain becomes automatically programmed to do any one of those particular sequences more easily and effortlessly the next time, and then the next time, and so on. As each of these individual steps merge into one complete step, thinking a familiar thought of an experience of somebody or something at some place in some time will automatically create the anticipation of the feeling of the experience. If you can predict the feeling of any experience, you are still in the know. For instance, the thought of having a meeting with the same team of people you have worked with for years can automatically cause you to call up the emotion of what the future event will feel like. When you can predict the feeling of that future event because you've had enough past experiences to make it known to you, you are probably going to be creating more of the same. And of course, you are right. But that's because you are the same. By the same means, if you are in the automatic program and cannot predict the feeling of an experience in your life, you will probably be hesitant to engage it. We need to look at one more aspect of thinking and feeling to get the full picture of what's happening when we keep living in the same state of being. This thinking-feeling loop also produces a measurable electromagnetic field that surrounds our physical bodies. In fact, our bodies are always emitting light, energy, or frequencies that carry a specific message, information, or intention. By the way, when I say light, I'm not just referring to the light we see, but to all spectrums of light, including X-rays, cell phone waves, and microwaves. In the same way, we also receive vital information that is carried on different frequencies. So we are always sending and receiving electromagnetic energy. Here's how that works. When we think a thought, Those networks of neurons that fire in our brain create electrical charges. When those thoughts also cause a chemical reaction that results in a feeling or an emotion, as well as when a familiar feeling or emotion is driving our thoughts, those feelings create magnetic charges. They merge with the thoughts that create the electric charges to produce a specific electromagnetic field equal to your state of being. Think of emotions as energy in motion. When someone experiencing a strong emotion walks into a room, their energy, aside from their body language, is often very palpable. We have all felt another person's energy and intent when they were angry or very frustrated. We felt it because they were emitting a strong signal of energy that carried specific information. The same is true of a very sexual person, a person who is suffering, or a person who has a calm, loving energy. All those energies can be sensed and felt. As you might expect, different emotions produce different frequencies. The frequencies of creative, elevated emotions like love, joy, and gratitude are much higher than the emotions of stress, such as fear and anger, because they carry different levels of conscious intent and energy. See figure 2.2, which details some of the different frequencies associated with various emotional states. You'll read more about this concept later in the book.
Man, we'll just end there. But dude, that blew my mind when they started talking about how the
bars,
bro. When they started talking about all these things, I was just like,
wow,
"This is insane. This is crazy." I am so excited to hear what everybody has to say about this and what everybody took away. We'll start with our friend Josh Ruber. Josh Ruber, man, what was your biggest takeaway when it?
Let me check this real quick because I wrote a lot. I just want to figure out exactly what I want to bring up because I don't want to bring up too much because I want to let all you guys get a chance too. So I just want to bring up one key part.
Bro, there was so much I couldn't write fast enough. I was taking.
Dude, I wrote so fast. You don't understand.
I was taking pictures.
I couldn't type fast.
I'm like still trying to like stretch it out right now because it kind of hurts. All right. So I love how all right. I'm gonna go with the past one. All right. So being stuck in the past, I absolutely love that, especially when you wake up to the familiar, like you said. You know, you want to wake up where you're more in a comfortable state. I understand that. So therefore, you go to familiar thoughts. You know what I mean? Or experiences and emotions. You know, and not all those emotions are what we should want to be feeling. You know what I mean? Just because they're familiar. And I understand that a lot because I used to be in that world all day, every single day. You know, I wanted to wake up in that feeling because I knew how to be in that, you know, state of mind and react to it too, where I guess you could say I could handle it, but I couldn't, you know what I mean? Because inside I'm going crazy about it because I know this isn't right for me. I need to do something different about it, but I'm just so stuck in the familiar reality that it's all I know at the moment. And as soon as you break through that, it's like I said, man, it's something I can't even describe the word for what happens when you do break through that. And when you do figure out like, hey, there's more to life, there's more to this, there's more to that, you start seeing things from a different view. All right. And when you start seeing things from a different view, that's when the magic happens. That's when your mind just dilates to everything. And like I said, man, the world is infinite, like you were saying, and it's full of possibilities. When you finally set in your mind that your reality become anything that you thought of that was possible, it's infinite. That's for sure.
That thinking, feeling loop, right? He said that by the age of 30, we're 95% a program. Like we're 95% have already been foundationally created from programs that were literally vaulted on us. And so when we wake up that next morning, if you're not in control of the circumstance, you're going to fall victim basically to the past. You're going to fall victim to everything that you were going through emotionally, physically, all of it, because it's just a loop and you just keep on getting in it. So do we know the one way that we can control our morning every morning when we first wake up? Does everybody know yet?
Gratitude.
Gratitude, baby. Gratitude, baby. Let's go, man. Hey, before we get out of bed, dude, let's make sure that we take control, bro, that we're the captains of our own destiny. We write out 10 things that we're grateful for because it is something that's foreign to us. It is something that's challenging. It is something that's very, very, very difficult to do. And because it's difficult to do, we find that it's impeding on our already calculated schedules. But this is an opportunity for us to take control of our day and dictate, hey, we're going to live today in gratitude. We're going to live today in peace. We're going to live today in fulfillment. You know what I'm saying? You get to dictate that, but you have to change the habit. You have to change the feeling loop. It's so awesome to hear. But thank you for sharing, Josh Ruber.
Yeah.
Tony Anderson.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good stuff in this chapter tonight. So one thing that really just stuck with me, that just had me thinking, I sort of zoned out for a second, just the concept of us not being linear beings, but being dimensional beings. And so essentially there's many different possible outcomes for our lives in the eternal present moment. And so it just, it really just goes to show some people, might try to tell you, or say this is what was meant for me. This is what I was always supposed to be doing. But I guess in any moment, your life can go any sort of way. And so it just had me thinking about how, all the energy needs to be channeled going toward that one possible outcome that you do know you want. So it's not going to any of those other possible outcomes. You have to be, you sort of have to make sure of it and really have to focus all the energy. And so when it comes to controlling your habits, things such as gratitude, stuff like that, I think it's super important.
Dude, the only thing when Tony was talking, the only thing I could think of was faith of a mustard seed. Has anybody seen that quote in the Bible? They say that with the faith of a mustard seed. And I don't know if anybody knows what the size of a mustard seed is. It's like
I used to have a mustard seed necklace.
It's literally like the size of this ballpoint pen. You see the end of this pen? Yeah, bro, that's the size of a mustard seed, bro. With the faith of a mustard seed, we can move mountains, bro. With the faith of a mustard seed, we can move mountains. We can create whatever we want to create. But is our focus directional? Are we intentional with everything that we want to manifest, with everything that we want to create? Are we getting distracted? Are we getting distracted? You know what I'm saying? Like, it becomes so easy, but you have to stay focused. You have to literally laser into it and not get distracted. I keep on telling you guys about a story I'm going to tell you right now. We were driving the other day, Kelly and Tony, they don't even want me to tell this story. They definitely do not want me to tell you guys this story. Bro, we were driving, and right behind this apartment complex, there's a little river, and the little river has tiki huts. Well, one of the tiki huts was on fire. And so there was fire trucks zipping over the little bridge right there. Smoke everywhere, flames going crazy, right? Tony and Kelly, being the outstanding citizens that they are, they go, Zevin, look at the fire. It's crazy. Do you see the fire? Bro, you know what I told them? I said, I don't see anybody else's fire. There's a fire right now, and I only want to pay attention to our fire. I only want to pay attention to our fire. So listen, why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story to say, bro, let's not get distracted, because the devil's going to throw a lot of distractions your way. 100%. Let's get laser focused. Only look at our fire. Only look at our fire. But thank you for sharing. I just had to get that story out. I knew I was going to tell it eventually. You know what I'm saying? Will Cameron, what do you think?
What's up, gang? So through the content we've been consuming, reference points have become extremely important. And I think a phenomenal reference point from today's portion that we listened to was the idea of multiple minds. Taking it further, you've got a shower mind, as he said. You've got a driving mind, as he said. You've got a mind where you remember a song immediately. You know what I mean? We're all fans of music here. You know what I mean? There's a handful of songs we can all probably spit word for word. You know what I mean? Just because of that music mind, that repetitious mind you know, because we enjoy the song, we hear it so often. And so I think putting it in the context of, you know, knowing that you have multiple minds, I think it's very important and pretty phenomenal to actually just sit on that subject for a second and just think about that and understand that you can control, you know what I mean, whatever current mind you're in. So if that's your professional mind, your personal mind, your relationship mind, your personal development mind, your et cetera mind. We've got a bunch of them, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that he put it in that way, you know, of giving me those daily things, you know, your shower mind again, your driving mind. Who's to say we can't have, you know what I mean, an abundance program to completely saturate our minds? And I think it's through conscious, you know, repetition that we achieve that. So I think the multiple minds principle was super powerful.
Absolutely. And just to like reverse engineer all that you said, dude, they said that every thought that we create creates an electromagnetic frequency. So the idea of multiple minds means that we're creating a lot of energy together. It's so cool just to kind of unpack that concept, just thinking more about that concept and how much power we can create if we all just narrow in on the idea of mind. They said mind is the brain in action, creating our own electromagnetic frequencies, strong bonds together. What can't we create when we're all in this together, thinking the same thoughts? You know what I'm saying? So thank you for sharing, Will Cameron. I appreciate it. Taylor Walker, yo, what's good? What's good? Yo, dude, did this serve a value to you? Did you learn anything? You take anything away? You're on mute. He's like, oh shit.
How y'all doing? I took a lot away, man. I took a lot away. I mean, my mind personally, I always think about the unknown and, you know, the infinite possibilities of the world, and, you know, having a one-track mind to what you really want and putting that together and really focusing and honing in on basically what your perceptions of everything is and how your perceptions can really drive you in the right direction to where you want to be at. And if you use that direction, or if you use that perception consciously instead of being on the unconscious program, then you could really make magic happen in the invisible, in the invisible realm. So I feel like if you take that and really construct your whole self around being in that consciously instead of running on the subconscious, then you can really make magic happen in your life and manifest the people, opportunities, certain surroundings, and the certain things that you digest, even if you're in the midst of whatever's going on around you, you can kind of, like baseball, you know, you got to block out everything. I play baseball, I play sports. So you got to block out the noise. You got to get in your zone. So you get in that zone with all the naysayers, whoever's around at the time or whatever they're trying to do, you stay in the midst of your own central core. Then I feel like you can be at whatever vibration or whatever feeling you want to be at any point in time. You can carry that around with you at all times. So
That's real, dude. Everything is created in the spiritual first, and then secondarily it's created in the physical. But it doesn't just go the other way around. The things that are in the physical, they weren't shifted from out of nowhere. No, they were created through thought.
Right.
They were created through emitted electromagnetic frequencies, right? The binding of certain minds, dude. In order for us to go to Mars or in order for us to go to the moon, they had to bind, I don't even know how many minds together to create the rocket ship to get us there, right?
Right.
10,000 minds. But it started in spiritual. It started with somebody saying, I believe we can get to the moon. In fact, I have the path to do it, right? I have the path.
Yeah.
And that's how they did it. So I appreciate you for sharing, Taylor Walker, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
Caleb DeRose.
Yo,
What's good? What's good?
what's happening? Yeah, there was a lot actually in this. Like I said, I was taking pictures of the screen so I can keep writing it down. But I had three major points that I wrote down, and I wrote little stars next to them. But each of us has a myriad possible incarnation that exist in the internal present moment, all waiting to be discovered. And then he went into saying, when the mastery of self is unveiled, we can wake up the understanding that we are not linear beings living in a linear life, but instead dimensional beings living in dimensional lives. That beauty behind the infinite possibilities that awaits us is that the only way we can change the future is to change ourselves in the present. And that, like, if you think about it, we're not stuck. We're not in a fixed motion. We have to go, there's going to be ups and downs and everything, and you just have to know how to build back up. And because we are only as good as what we did the day before, and if we didn't do anything the day before, then are we actually doing something to change the downslope, or are we just going down and being linear? So we got to consistently build up and keep working to get the results we want and to make our future.
Bro, that line, dude, that quote, bro, that was so deep, bro. You share that on TikTok, bro. It's a viral video. It's an automatic viral video, bro, like 100%, because there's just so much to unpack from it. There's so much to learn from it. I feel like the more that you repeat it, the more that it's said, the more things that just go off in my mind, and it's just like bam, 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 damn, like what does this mean? What does this mean? And it's connecting different like electrons or whatever happens in your brain. It's like, wow.
That was another thing too. When he was going over, I didn't get to write any of it down because I was still writing this part down. But when he was going over how our brains worked and how we were on the same way, like our thoughts were in the same wavelength as light, and that's traveling through ether. So all of that is traveling through ether, and light is shining. If our thoughts are in that same ether, why can't we make what we want?
We can. We just got to control that present moment and not live in the past at all, right? But thank you for sharing, bro. Thank you for adding that thought-provoking quote, right? And then being able to unpack it and articulate it. So thank you for being here, man. Eddie Jones, I see you turned on that camera, boy.
Yeah, man. Listen to some good stuff right now.
What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I think I'm gonna more so talk about what I took from it more so than reiterating what I heard. But in times we all have these days where we get up and we have the same exact day over and over and over again. And I think the main takeaway that I got from this entire 2 chapters that we just read was that gratitude definitely is one of them. You definitely have to wake up with gratitude for your day, for your future, and how automatically you can be preset into the past. So I think the main thing is that we need to try to live our days every day differently. Every day has to be different. Whether that's if you decided to walk to Starbucks this morning, tomorrow ride a skateboard. If you decide to, if you decide to wake up and you want to read a book, next day jump up and go swimming. Something to re-trigger your future self, instead of reiterating what you just did the day before and the day before that and the day before that. And I feel like we all get caught in that moment, and everybody does it, dude. You all get caught in that moment, force of habit. So I think the real key that I got out of it is create a habit out of making new habits. Constantly make new habits so that you're not stuck in this constant loop of living in the past. The main thing that I hear from that is that we're not linear. He said that very, very clearly. We don't walk a linear path. We're a bunch of tetrahedrons, which is basically a continuously moving set of triangles that are just constantly moving in and out of different dimensions. And you can have a future self, you can have a present self. It kind of looks like on the Christmas Carol movie, how you have the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. But ultimately, the whole purpose of that story is for that ghost to come and show you your past, show you your present, so that you can try to alter that future. And that's the life we have to live. We have to live that every single day, every single moment. Every single thought we do emits a frequency, and it does something to not only your brain, and your blood cells. He said it very clearly that eventually, if you do the same thing for too long, the body becomes the mind. So if you ever watch basketball and you see Steph Curry or someone, Kobe Bryant or somebody, they shoot 1,000 shots a day, dude. So when they're actually on the course, they're not thinking, oh, I hope I'm going to make this shot. No, at that point, the body has taken over, and the body is now more powerful than the mind. And that's where the term mind over matter comes from. And so I think it's just developing that skill to constantly create new habits so that it's always literally your mind is actually in control of everything you're doing, not your subconscious, not the things that you don't see, that you don't even realize that you do, but constantly recognizing the things that you do and also recognizing the things that you don't do.
Boom.
So
I love that.
that's
Love that. They actually wrote out, or I actually wrote out one thing that they said, which stems off of what Eddie just went over. They asked us how much room in our routine, predictable life, do we have for the unknown? Like, how much time are we willing to devote to changing our past habits? Because
right.
exactly, right? Like we all know that the habits that we've had in the past have created this specific circumstance, right? So the only way to
Right.
get to be more is to become more, is to change the
And,
things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
and it goes back to the saying, like, if you want more, you definitely got to become more. The main thing that I get out of that is, if I'm going to continuously make my life better, if I'm going to continuously strive for what we all strive for, ultimately, or we all look for success, right? I think we can all agree on that. We all want a success in one shape or form. But so what is success? Success is nothing more than the constant realization of a worthy ideal. Do you hear what I said right now?
That
The
was
constant realization of a worthy ideal, something that you consider that is the ideal situation for you, yourself. And is it worthy enough for you to constantly realize that and have a tunnel vision, laser focus, and go towards that worthy ideal every single day until you reach it? And that's all we have to continuously do. So I love it, man.
mic
Great
drop.
book.
Mic drop. Let's run. Retweet. I love that. Thanks for being here, Eddie.
No
Kelly,
worries, man.
what did you take away?
Sure. So one particular note that I took away was don't let your body become your mind. And so diving further into that, it's like when your habits create your unconscious behavior, it gets stored in your body. And that's like when your body becomes your mind, because you've built these chemical bonds based off of the memories that fired those neurons and created those neural pathways that then become stronger and stronger over time through those habits. So controlling your habits means not allowing your body to take over your mind and letting those habits become your routine, or those reflex emotions that come with those out or external experiences throughout your day. So like not letting your body react to that chemical pattern that you might be used to when you're driving into the car or in your car all the time, maybe changing that habit so you're thinking different thoughts within your car ride on your way to work, manifesting different results, or like just I guess like future endeavors or patterns that you want to create, rather than allowing your body to create that moment for you. And then just being very conscious of the fact that your body can get stuck or get addicted or comfortable to those certain chemical reactions, and just allowing your mind to be in control of that rather than, again, letting it just be a pattern that continues.
Deep. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. We'll go to Chris Cruz. Chris Cruz, can you talk? I know you said that you had a.
Yes, I can. I've been listening.
There we go. He's sprinting out the damn door.
And I locked myself out. It's all right. So, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today?
Oh, we're good, dude. Abundant.
Amazing.
Word. I feel amazing too. I had a good night myself. I was in and out, obviously, but with training and stuff. But the one thing that really stood out to me was the line where he started to explain the importance of, and some of you kind of spoke on this, but it was knowing and predicting yourself. And what I took from that directly is the importance of self-awareness. Now, that is my take on it as far as self-awareness. If you are aware of your patterns, if you're aware of how you typically react to things, as it was explained, there's a power to how you behave. So example, I knew, this is anecdotal, but I knew today, I was like, all right, I have like 3 clients. I want to touch somebody with Bloomble. I have to come out here and get beat up for like an hour by my instructor because I haven't been here in like a month. And I have to be on a Bloomble meeting. Now, if I wasn't aware that a normal version of me going into this was stressed, right? I'm going to associate stress. I would not have a smile on my face right now. Right. I would not be over here gasping for air, but still smiling. You know what I'm saying? But I was excited. I knew that anxiety was coming. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have motivation to go in there and beat somebody else's ass. I'm going to go in there and just really do my thing today. And I'm going to really have a good time. I'm going to really be happy. And I'm going to have a lot of energy, and look at how it radiates. Now, I didn't know he was going to say that in the book, but I apply that to my life already. And look at the profound difference. Now, all of you are home and stuff like that. And, there's no reason for you to be hyped, but I was aware of my own emotions. Look at me right now, dude. I'm on 10 right now. So that resonated with me, because if you take anything from it, you can look at me and be like, nah, it works. It's true. Be aware of yourself internally and outside, and you have a power that most people don't have. So my guy.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Over there looking like David Goggins or some shit.
Looking like David Goggins. Yeah. I'm actually a strength and conditioning coach for a Brazilian jiu-jitsu place called Infinity.
Love it. Love it.
Absolutely.
We appreciate having you, and the words that you're having here, the value and the vibration, right? It is absolutely miraculous, bro. And having you here. Thank you for
Love it.
Kyle Powell, bro. Last but certainly not least, of course not least. Yo, Kyle Powell, man. Did this serve a purpose for you, bro? Did you take something away from Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Man, if I were to write down everything that I learned from this lesson, it would just be the whole entire chapter. So, I mean, that would be plagiarism on my part. So, but I'll reference something that he was talking with at the end of chapter 1, where he was talking about the fact that people shouldn't, or he was talking about that torture scene where he was just having his spine dislocated, shoulder dislocated, coming out of grasp or whatnot. And I just couldn't, like, I just had to relate that to the fact of, like, who else was, being tortured in front of hundreds of people or whatnot for teaching a philosophy that was somewhat new or somewhat new or nuanced to other people. And it just like kept on reminding me of like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ or whatnot. And the fact that, some people are unable to understand a new philosophy. And then he ends it off by saying that he was like a cave, was living in a cave doing fishing and trapping fish and just living in a cave. And saying that that people shouldn't be afraid to live people shouldn't be afraid to live as much as they are in fear of death or whatnot. And it just relates heavily into what Eddie was saying, which, I mean, Eddie was taking on like a second form of Joe Dispenza right there. Like, it was nuts. But like he had a bar. Eddie said, make habits or make new habits the new habit. I think that's what you said, right, Eddie?
Yeah, create habits for making new habits. you know,
Right.
because every day, dude, we do the same things and we don't realize it. And that's what he was saying on different minds, how you just develop a different mind for everything that you constantly do. So this is something I've been practicing lately, is like I said, dude, I'll get up and like, I'll just do something different. Even if it's the slightest thing, the slightest change in my day just completely alters my vibrations. And I believe everything happens for a reason, but I take it even further. I believe everything happens for a good reason. Even if it seems negative, there's a good reason behind it. There's always that silver lining. So just changing that habit, changing and recognizing that you do have a habit. I think a lot of us get in denial on that part too, where, you know, sometimes people take it offensive that, hey, you know, you have a habit and it's not the most ideal habit. And people don't want to listen to that and recognize it. So like recognizing the things that we do, but also the things that we don't, you know? So yeah, thank you for that, Kyle. Definitely.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And it just relates so much to like what we've been learning, like from David Goggins' book, you know, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, you know, picking up habits. It's easier to pick up a bad habit than it is a good habit. But no one wants to take the easy route. Everything's going to be more difficult, especially good habits. Like for instance, like making sure that you work out before you go to work or something like that, or making sure that you do a specific task that is really tedious, and the fact that you don't have to do it, but it's the fact that you need to callous your mind and actually put yourself to that, because you know it's just going to pay out for you and make your life easier, or just make anyone's life easier. I mean, to be honest, like with you, it's just really the fact of like you shouldn't be afraid to, you know, just try to be better.
Absolutely, bro. Amen. Amen.